falaram em Zika, doença de Zika.
Quand on a compris ce dont était capable ce virus, on est devenu réellement inquiet.
Il y avait une armée de scientifiques pour combattre ce virus.
You pull out the tube and there's this really little brain inside this tube.
On comprenait pas trop ce qui se passait parce que c'était vraiment complètement inattendu.
The more we learned, the more it was, oh my goodness, not yet again another surprise.
Eles não estavam caídos, não tinham aquela aparência de estar muito grave, de estar doente. Era só uma doença que dava um exantema, uma vermelhidão no corpo, que coçava muito. Não sabíamos exatamente o que era e corríamos atrás do diagnóstico. E encontrei o relato e comparei com os meus pacientes e disse exatamente isso. Isso deve ser Zika mesmo.
When I first heard about Zika, as it were, in a new outbreak in Brazil, I was very interested in it, and I wanted to learn more about what was Zika before it got to Brazil. Zika was first recognized in 1947. There weren't any human cases recognized until a few years later in 1952, and then it kind of went under the radar screen in Africa and Asia. We were getting reports from French Polynesia where it was before it got into Brazil. And it was felt that, 80% of the people who were infected had very few, if any, symptoms. So anything that was said about Zika ahead of time indicated that it was, if anything, somewhat of an inconsequential infection.
Lors de cette épidémie, ce qui était nouveau et qui n'avait pas été vu en Micronésie sur l'île de Yap quelques années plus tôt, c'était l'apparition de paralysie sévère chez près de 40-50 patients qui ont dû être hospitalisés parce que ces paralysies étaient telles qu'ils ne pouvaient plus respirer. C'est ce qu'on appelle les syndromes de Guillain-Barré. On n'était pas non plus trop inquiet parce qu'on parlait de quelques dizaines de cas. Donc on s'y est intéressé, mais sans être particulièrement alarmiste.
Six states in Brazil have declared an emergency after thousands of babies were born in the country this year with suspected brain damage.
Laura was born with microcephaly.
Autour de la 10e semaine de la grossesse, les cellules qui vont donner naissance au cerveau commencent à se multiplier. Donc si une infection survient lors du premier trimestre, dans ces semaines critiques, les risques que le cerveau ne puisse pas se développer normalement sont considérables.
When a baby's head is of the normal size, it's because the brain develops and pushes up the skull and you have the normal contour of the skull. If there's anything that interferes with or destroys that process, the brain doesn't develop right and the skull becomes smaller.
Eu fiquei muito concernida. Chegavam na consulta com muito medo, elas chegavam com muito medo. Elas viviam com um fantasma da microcefalia. Meu bebê vai ser normal, meu bebê vai ser... As nossas mulheres, 29% tinham alguma alteração. Eu fiquei muito chocada, eu fiquei assim, muito desesperada, porque me colocava no lugar das mães, do jeito que ele... E para mim, como mãe, isso é muito difícil. E elas...
Quando no parto, meu filho nasceu, foi uma sensação incrível. Mas o que cortou essa sensação foi quando veio muito médico pra cima de mim. Já tiraram do meu colo. Eu chorei muito e me culpei. Falei que tudo era culpa minha, mas o sentimento de mãe é uma coisa inexplicável. É um amor muito grande que invade todo o nosso ser, sabe?
La découverte des complications neurologiques chez les enfants nous a tous pris par surprise. Et on est devenu réellement inquiets.
I remember very clearly, I called an emergency meeting and I sat down and I said, okay, folks, all hands on deck. We don't have a lot of time. Women are getting infected. They're getting pregnant. Their babies are being endangered. So we need to do this really quickly.
Donc, quand on met un moustique sous le microscope, on s'aperçoit que c'est tout un monde qu'on a sous les yeux. Et on va de plus en plus profond dans le fonctionnement du moustique pour bien comprendre le rôle des moustiques dans la transmission des pathogènes. La trompe du moustique est quelque chose de très mobile. Le moustique va trouver le micro-capillaire où le sang passe à l'aide de ce tout petit canal très très fin. Les femelles ont besoin du sang, surtout pour le développement de leurs œufs. Donc c'est par instinct maternel que les femelles piquent, plus que pour se nourrir. On va exposer des moustiques à cet insecticide. L'insecticide que nous utilisons sur ces moustiquaires est un neurotoxique. Il va se fixer sur les neurones du moustique. Le moustique va être paralysé et ensuite mourir très rapidement.
In order to succeed, every drop of water must be drained or cleared. Une femelle moustique va pondre 200 à 300 œufs tous les 2 jours, ce qui fait que ce mécanisme de résistance peut très rapidement envahir toute une population de moustiques.
If Aedes aegypti had a mind of its own and could think and reason like we do, I would hope that I would be their #1 enemy. Get rid of that guy. I would have never dreamed in 1971 when I started working on Aedes aegypti-borne diseases that 40 years on, we would be dealing with a much worse problem than we were at that time. Every time I retire, it seems like a new epidemic comes along, and I have to get back on my horse and back in the fight of it. Aedes aegypti is a very silent mosquito. You don't hear it, usually you don't feel it, and so if you're in a room with 5 or 6 people and a single Aedes aegypti mosquito is there, chances are that she will bite all of you. And if she's infected with virus like Zika, every one of you will have a Zika infection.
This is a classical breeding site for Aedes aegypti. They love automobile tires. Perfect conditions for the larvae.
Those eggs will hatch, and in a few days they'll emerge as adults, and that's when the trouble begins. Tires are shipped around the world, and it takes the eggs with them. The eggs hatch, and you have Aedes aegypti introduced into a new area. They've been around a long time, a lot longer than humans, and they'll probably be here after we're gone.
E nós estamos perdendo a luta contra o mosquito.
Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff has declared war on mosquitoes.
More than 200,000 soldiers have begun specialized training.
I live on a lake, so I like to come out here when I either need to relax or need inspiration. When I first heard about Zika, I came out here and I started to think, how can I help? I was always interested in virology. Viruses are so clever, so efficient. It's fascinating.
Yeah, we were able to basically stop what we were doing, just kind of
pull Zika in, almost switch them out at that point.
Yeah, then I said to these guys, this is it. Let's find out what happens.
We were worried about the potential risk of working with Zika virus. A virus that can do so much damage to a fetal brain is not something that we had encountered before.
What else can it do? The what if, what else? What are they going to find next? We had to pretty much every 6 hours or so for an entire weekend watch these plates of cells that we had put the Zika virus on.
And then finally we thought there was something. So we took the cells, we put them on the slide, and we tried to detect virus, and we found it.
It became clear that I needed to get a hold of some brain cells.
As scientists, we are always curious and drawn to mystery. So when I first saw the images actually in the news about these babies born with microcephaly, I thought maybe there's something I can do. The beauty of the stem cells is that you can make them to become a heart cell, a liver cell, a pancreatic cell, and a brain cell, of course.
You grow them in suspension so you can spin them and try to enhance the oxygen nutrient absorption.
Everybody's really excited about it. Now we can make the mini brains develop.
If you look through the microscope, you actually can see many, many different layers. You see the layers of neural stem cells, you see layers of different type of neurons, and just like in the normal human developing brain, and they form these intricate structures.
They can actually function like a real nerve cell, and they can fire electrical signals just as they do normally in the brain.
We started looking for where can we find the virus. And most of the answer is you have to wait. You have to wait for several months when the virus can be available.
The virus becomes the cover story. This is what we're putting out here, and it sells. I mean, it's the biggest selling cover story in the world.
Zika is not the cause of microcephaly.
In science, you don't want to be so presumptuous to think you know what the answer is right from the get-go. But on the other hand, you got to be careful of getting distracted by fantasy theories.
As always happens in these kinds of cases, a lot of alternative theories crop up.
It becomes an urgent question whether the Zika virus directly causes microcephaly or not, because answer to that question will have a direct impact on the public policy.
Suddenly, Hongjun received an email from Hen Li and asking him who is the best expert working on neurodevelopment.
I called him immediately, and the first question I asked was, do you have the virus in your hand?
The decision was made on the spot, over the phone, to go ahead.
So we opened the box, and we took out the flask, and it's just these flasks with these little brain cells. They were so large that you could actually see the brains in the tube.
Yeah, this was definitely a little bit of a nerve-wracking point because we have to incubate them with the Zika virus and then wait for them to develop, and that takes a little bit of time. So finally at the end, you can see, okay, what did Zika virus do to these? And it was pretty dramatic.
It's amazing result.
The ones that had Zika virus on them were so much smaller.
Only after 1 week, they sent a picture taken from a cell phone. It's like, wow, now this is really telling us something. And the Zika virus indeed linked to microcephaly, because the mini brains are just much more smaller if you compare to a normal one.
You immediately see the layers of neurons is much thinner. And that's just like in the baby with microcephaly.
When the pictures were shown of how profound destruction of cells could occur, it's chilling because you get a feeling of the destructive power of this particular virus.
Transmission du virus Zika par voie sexuelle, mais un cas avéré.
Que una mujer residente en la capital ha resultado infectada de Zika por contagio sexual.
If you have a male who's infected, who gets Zika, and we know now it's sexually transmitted, the woman could never ever go near a mosquito and still get infected. And that just adds another profound risk to the equation.
L'idée du vaccin, c'est de présenter au système immunitaire des composants du virus qui feront que le système immunitaire va développer une réponse. Il y a déjà aujourd'hui des essais qu'on appelle de phase 1 pour voir si le vaccin est bien toléré. Il y a même un essai de phase 2 où on voit s'il induit une réponse immunitaire qui pourrait être protectrice. Et ça, c'est chez l'homme. On a bien vu que la principale complication du virus Zika, ce sont les atteintes neurologiques chez les enfants nés de mères infectées pendant la grossesse. Ce sont donc les femmes, avant même qu'elles soient en âge de procréer, qui seront la cible de ce vaccin.
Une des questions que les scientifiques se sont posées a été de savoir si la souche de Zika avait évolué par rapport à la souche originellement découverte en Afrique et était devenue plus toxique. L'idée était, dans un premier temps, d'essayer de comparer cette toxicité entre la souche africaine et la souche qui était aussi responsable de l'épidémie au Brésil. Ça a vraiment fait une grande différence puisque nous avions accès à une souche africaine qui circulait au niveau de ce continent.
On se demandait ce qui se passait parce que ce n'était pas du tout les résultats attendus. En fait, finalement, on s'attendait complètement à l'inverse. Donc, on a décidé d'aller plus loin afin de comprendre ce qui se passait avec cette souche africaine.
La souche africaine infectait beaucoup plus les cellules du système nerveux et on s'est aussi rendu compte qu'elle était plus toxique.
The confusing thing about microcephaly is that microcephaly is caused by a number of things. So the reason you may not have seen it before with Zika is that the level of Zika was what we call endemic and not in its outbreak form. And there may have been cases that were related to Zika to microcephaly, but you couldn't distinguish them from microcephaly caused by other causes.
So we plot the points in here, and every time we go closer to the point, it beeps, telling us the right time to release. So we release in this neighborhood 3 times a week. Every release that we do, we release something around 250,000 mosquitoes.
Ele simplesmente causa muito dano em todos os locais que ele está presente. Então, na verdade, esse é um mosquito que, para a humanidade, provavelmente não seria nenhum tipo de problema se a gente conseguisse eliminar. Aqui nós temos nossos ovos secos. A fábrica produz cerca de 1 quilograma de ovos em uma semana. O macho é pequeno, a fêmea é grande. Eu consigo, através de um processo de filtração, retirar esses machos que passam pelos buracos e as fêmeas maiores ficam presas. Nós liberamos esse macho na natureza e tudo que ele faz é encontrar as fêmeas que estão ali e reproduzir com elas. Essa é a grande função do macho.
Il faudra rester très vigilant à ce que ces méthodes de contrôle soient abordables pour les populations où elles vont être utilisées, et notamment sur le long terme. Est-ce que cette diminution sera pérenne? C'est un des grands enjeux de ces nouvelles approches qui sont proposées dans le contrôle des populations de moustiques.
À medida que o trabalho foi progredindo e que os bebês foram nascendo, nós entendemos que a microcefalia é só uma ponta do iceberg.
Pronto, pronto, pronto.
There are babies that are born with a normal size head, but then the microcephaly starts to occur after birth. Then there's visual abnormalities. There's hearing loss. So right now we're calling it the Zika congenital syndrome.
Lá, vai na frente, cuidado para não bater no... Ah, minha linda, deixa eu te examinar você de novo. Olha, peraí.
Essas crianças estão crescendo, se desenvolvendo, ninguém sabe como. E tem mães aí, são mais de 13 mil mães com bebês afetados.
C'est une véritable guerre civile à laquelle on assiste dans cette cage, qui se passe à une échelle très fine, mais qui a des implications à l'échelle globale du monde entier. Ce moustique est extrêmement agressif. Il va entrer en compétition avec d'autres moustiques, avec des moustiques locaux, pour remplacer les moustiques là où ils sont et s'installer à leur place.
Il existe aujourd'hui encore de très nombreux virus, dans des zones très reculées, dans des régions forestières tropicales. Il suffirait que ces virus sortent de ces forêts, voyagent, pour qu'une épidémie se déclenche. Et je serais bien incapable de vous dire quelle sera la prochaine.